During Thanksgiving dinner, my son-in-law hands me a bucket of slop in front of 10 guests, and my own daughter hisses, "Now this is what your food will look like, freeloader." The holiday turns into humiliation. That night, I packed my suitcase and disappeared. The next day, what I had done made them scream and cry. Justice with an unexpected twist. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The voices woke me. Laughter, the clink of silverware, the low hum of conversation drifting up through the floor. I opened my eyes to the dim light of my bedroom, disoriented. The digital clock on my nightstand read 6:32 p.m., Thanksgiving evening. I'd fallen asleep at my desk after lunch, exhausted from the week's preparations, assuming someone would call me when dinner was ready. But clearly, dinner had started without me. I swung my legs off the bed and stood, straightening my shirt, running a hand through my gray hair. The sounds grew louder as I approached my bedroom door. Multiple voices, not just Rosamond and Theodore. Guests. They'd invited guests. Of course they had. This was their event, after all, even if it was happening in my house. I descended the stairs slowly, each step accompanied by the crescendo of celebration below. At the bottom, I could see through the archway into the dining room. The table was full. 10 people, maybe more. Plates loaded with turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, wine glasses catching the chandelier light. The golden bird sat carved at the center, already half consumed. Nobody noticed me at first. I stepped into the doorway. A woman in a blue sweater, Judy Brennan from 3 houses down, looked up mid-sentence and stopped talking. Then another guest noticed, then another. The conversation stuttered and died like a candle snuffed out. "Rosamond," I said, keeping my voice steady, "why didn't you call me down for dinner?" My daughter sat at the head of the table, Theodore beside her. She glanced at him, then back at me. Her expression held something I'd seen before but never wanted to name. Contempt. Theodore pushed back his chair. The legs scraped against the hardwood floor. "Oh, sorry, Pops," he said, drawing out each word with theatrical emphasis. "We totally forgot about you. You know how it is. Out of sight, out of mind." He walked past me toward the kitchen. Nobody spoke. I could hear him opening the pantry, rummaging around. When he returned, he was carrying a white plastic bucket, the one we used for kitchen scraps. He extended it toward me like a waiter presenting a covered dish at a fancy restaurant. Inside, coffee grounds, orange peels, turkey bones stripped of meat, vegetable peelings, gravy-soaked paper towels. "Here you go, Pops," Theodore announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Your plate." Rosamond laughed, not a nervous giggle, but a sharp, delighted sound. "Now your food will look just right, freeloader," she said. The word hung in the air like smoke. 2 of the guests gasped softly. Judy Brennan stared down at her plate. A man across the table, Marcus something, one of Theodore's work friends, shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should—" Judy started. Theodore waved her off, still holding the bucket out to me. I took it from his hands. Not snatching, not throwing it back at him. I took it carefully, the way you'd accept any offering, and held it for 3 seconds. Coffee grounds, orange peels, greasy napkins, the smell of decay. I set the bucket down on the floor near the dining room entrance. Then I looked at my daughter. She was smiling, waiting for me to yell, to cry, to apologize for existing. Waiting for the same response I'd given for 3 years, the compliance, the tolerance, the endless patience. I looked at Theodore, arms crossed, chin lifted, triumphant. Something inside me didn't break. It crystallized. It became clear and hard and cold. I turned and walked back toward the stairs. My back stayed straight, my footsteps measured. I didn't look back, didn't speak, didn't give them the satisfaction of a reaction. Behind me, Theodore's voice boomed across the dining room. "All right, everyone, let's get back to this amazing meal. Who wants more stuffing?" I climbed the stairs one at a time. Each step felt like crossing a threshold. The man who'd lived in this house for 40 years. The man who'd raised Rosamond alone after her mother left. The man who'd paid for everything and asked for nothing. That man stayed at the bottom of those stairs. Whoever reached the top was someone new. I entered my bedroom and closed the door. For the first time in 3 months, I used the simple lock I'd installed on a Sunday afternoon when they were out. Click! The sound was small, but absolute. Below, the party continued. Laughter, music, the scrape of chairs. They weren't worried. They'd humiliated me in front of 10 witnesses, and they were celebrating. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. The screen's glow illuminated my hands. Steady, calm, ready. 3 years, $78,000. A bucket of garbage. The numbers were about to come due. 4 hours had passed since I'd left that bucket on the dining room floor. The house had gone quiet around 11. Guests leaving, doors closing, footsteps on the stairs as Rosamond and Theodore retired to their bedroom. Now it was nearly 3 in the morning, and I sat at my desk with my laptop open and a stack of bank statements spread before me like evidence at a trial. I wasn't crying, wasn't raging, I was calculating. The filing cabinet beside my desk held 3 years of records. I'd pulled every credit card statement, every utility bill, every receipt I'd kept in my meticulous accountant's way. Now I was building a spreadsheet, organizing the data into columns. Date, expense category, amount, authorized user. Rent I paid monthly, $1,500. They contributed 0. Utilities averaging $200 per month, 0. Groceries, household supplies, maintenance, 0. But the credit card charges, those told the real story. Theodore used my Visa for business supplies that turned out to be a PlayStation, a 65-inch television, expensive headphones. Rosamond used my MasterCard for boutique clothing, restaurant meals, spa visits. Neither had asked permission. They were authorized users on my accounts, and they'd treated my money like their inheritance arriving early. I finished the calculation at 3:47 a.m. Total support provided over 36 months, $78,247. I saved the file as Family Support 2022-2025 XLSX and closed the laptop. The room was dark except for the desk lamp. Outside my window, Tampa slept. Inside, I planned. At exactly 6 o'clock, I called my bank. Good morning. Thank you for calling First National. This is Rebecca speaking. How may I help you? Her voice was chipper despite the early hour. I imagined her in a call center somewhere, coffee steaming beside her keyboard. This is Otis Torres, I said. I need to remove an authorized user from my credit card account. Of course, Mr. Torres. May I have your account number? I recited it from memory, typed the security questions answers, confirmed my identity 3 times. I see here that Rosamond Torres has been an authorized user since March 2022, Rebecca said. You'd like to remove her access? Yes. Immediately, please. There was a pause. May I ask the reason for... It's a family matter, I said, keeping my tone polite but firm. I need it done today. Understood. I'll process that right now. The change will be effective within the hour. 1 cord cut. At 6:24, I made the second call. Different representative, same script. Theodore removed from my Visa. The man's voice held concern as he asked, Are you sure about this, Mr. Torres? Once we process the change, I'm completely sure. At 6:41, I made the third call. Both Rosamond and Theodore had debit cards linked to my checking account, something I'd set up 2 years ago when they claimed they needed access for emergencies. I removed both cards, changed my PIN, updated my online banking password to something they'd never guess. Bucket 2025. Just to confirm, the representative said, you're removing both authorized users and changing all access codes? Correct, and I'd like a notification sent to me if anyone attempts to use these accounts. We can set up fraud alerts. Would you like those sent by text or email? Both. By 7 o'clock, I'd severed every financial connection. They still lived in my house, but they could no longer spend my money. I stood and walked to my closet. From the top shelf, I pulled down a brown suitcase I hadn't used in years. I packed methodically. 7 pairs of underwear, 7 pairs of socks, 3 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, 1 sweater, toiletries, my laptop and charger, a folder containing my property deed, insurance papers, and the spreadsheet I'd just created. I moved quietly. My bedroom sat above the garage, farthest from the main bedroom where they slept off last night's wine. They'd never been early risers anyway. At 7:30, I descended the stairs for the second time in 12 hours. The dining room was clean. They'd at least managed that much. The kitchen counter held dirty dishes stacked in the sink, but the table was clear. I found a piece of notebook paper and wrote in my neat, accounting-style handwriting, "Gone to visit friends. Back in a few days." Oh, I didn't specify which friends. I didn't have close friends in Tampa anymore, but they didn't know that. Let them wonder. I placed the note on the counter, weighted down with a coffee mug, and picked up my suitcase. The house was silent as I walked to the front door. No creaking floorboards above, no voices, no sign they'd noticed my departure. I stepped outside into the cool November morning. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky orange and pink. My Honda Accord sat in the driveway where I'd parked it yesterday, back when I was still a man who tolerated disrespect. I loaded the suitcase into the trunk, climbed behind the wheel, and backed out slowly. Nobody watched from the windows. I drove east on Highway 60, away from Tampa, toward the sprawl of strip malls and chain restaurants that marked the city's edge. 15 miles out, I spotted what I needed: the Sunset Motor Inn, a 2-story budget motel with a flickering vacancy sign. The clerk was an elderly man reading a newspaper behind bulletproof glass. He looked up as I approached. "How many nights?" he asked. "7. I'll pay cash." He slid a registration form through the slot. "ID and a credit card for incidentals." "No card?" I said, placing $500 in 20s on the counter. "Cash only. Here's an extra 100 for the deposit." He studied me for a moment, then shrugged and took the money. "Room 217. Second floor, end of the hall. Checkout's at 11. The room was exactly what I expected. Beige walls, floral bedspread, television bolted to the dresser. I set my suitcase on the luggage rack and sat on the bed. My phone remained silent in my pocket. By now, 8:45 in the morning, they might have woken up. They might have found the note. They might have tried to use their credit cards for breakfast and discovered they no longer worked. I opened my laptop and connected to the motel's Wi-Fi. Then I began drafting an email to an attorney whose name I'd found in a late-night search. Margaret Whitfield, specializing in elder financial abuse and family law. Outside my window, traffic hummed on the highway. Inside this anonymous room, I began the process of taking back what was mine. Not angry, not hurt, just done. My phone started buzzing around noon. I was at the motel, laptop open, reviewing the email I'd sent to attorney Margaret Whitfield at 3 in the morning. The screen showed an unfamiliar number, the house phone. I let it ring through to voicemail. Then Theodore's cell, then Rosamond's. I set the phone face down on the nightstand and went back to my research on Florida property law. I knew exactly what was happening 15 miles away. By now, Theodore would be at a store somewhere, Home Depot most likely, given his endless stream of half-finished projects. He'd have a cart full of supplies for whatever scheme he'd dreamed up this week. The cashier would scan everything. Theodore would swipe my credit card with that casual entitlement he'd perfected, and the machine would beep. Declined. He'd try again, harder, as if determination could override bank protocols. Same result. The people behind him in line would shift their weight, checking their watches. The cashier would suggest another card. Theodore would pull out the second one. Same account, different number, still declined. The realization would hit him slowly, then all at once. Rosamond would have her own version, probably at Publix, her cart loaded with organic vegetables and expensive cuts of meat. The same scene, card reader refusing, face flushing red, the awkward suggestion from the cashier to try again. She'd abandon the cart, I could picture it perfectly, and rush to her car, phone already in her hand. They'd call each other first, then the bank, then me. My phone buzzed again. Another call, another voicemail notification. I'd spent 40 years as an accountant, and I understood systems. Remove one variable, in this case, access to my money, and watch the entire equation collapse. Theodore and Rosamond had built their lives on that single variable. Now it was gone, and they were frantically trying to recalculate. Around 1:30, I checked the voicemails. 3 from Rosamond, 2 from Theodore, 1 from the house phone. Rosamond's first. "Dad, please call me back. We need to talk." Her voice carried confusion, not quite fear yet. Her second, an hour later. "Dad, this isn't funny. The cards aren't working. Did something happen with the bank?" Her third, early evening. "Dad, please. I know you're upset about last night. We didn't mean it the way it sounded. It was just a joke that went too far. Please call me back. Please. I noticed what she didn't say. I'm sorry. Theodore left no messages, just hung up after the beep. Twice. The third time I could hear him start to speak. Listen, old man, I don't know what you think you're... Click. He'd thought better of leaving that particular threat on record. The house phone message came from Rosamond again, this time with Theodore audible in the background. We need to discuss this like adults, she said, voice tight. Behind her, just tell him to call back or come home. Theodore, impatient, already planning the confrontation he thought was coming. I deleted them all. By evening, I'd learned enough about Florida property law to know I needed professional help. The statute on guests at will was clear, but execution mattered. I found a firm downtown, Kova and Associates, specializing in property disputes, and sent an email requesting a Saturday consultation. Within an hour, Daniel Kova himself replied, "Available tomorrow 10 a.m. Fee structure attached." My phone buzzed again around 7. I picked it up this time, watched Rosamond's name flash across the screen, and set it back down. It rang for 35 seconds before switching to voicemail. This time I listened in real time as she left the message. "Dad, please come home. We can work this out. I promise things will change. We didn't mean what we said. It was just... we were joking around. Everyone jokes. Please, just call me back." Her voice broke on the word, "please," a calculated crack designed to trigger my paternal instincts. 3 years of therapy bills, back when I thought understanding them would help, had taught me about emotional manipulation. Recognize the pattern. Don't engage. Set boundaries. I pressed delete before the message finished. That night, I slept better than I had in months. No sounds of footsteps above me, voices through walls, the constant low-grade tension of sharing space with people who despised you. Just the hum of the motel's air conditioning and the occasional rumble of trucks on the highway. Around midnight, a text arrived from Theodore. "You can't hide forever," I typed a response. Not hiding, regrouping, then deleted it without sending. Let him wonder. Let them both wonder. Silence was its own answer, and uncertainty was a tool I was just beginning to understand how to use. I thought about them in my house, their house now in their minds, probably sitting at that kitchen table trying to figure out their next move. They had maybe $200 between them. Rosamond's freelance income wouldn't arrive until next week. Theodore's business ventures generated zero revenue. They'd been living on my credit cards for so long, they'd forgotten those cards belonged to someone. By Wednesday, they'd try the cards again. Still declined. They'd call the bank again, maybe escalate to a supervisor, demand answers they wouldn't get. The bank representative would repeat the same information. Account holder removed your authorization. Contact him directly. But I wouldn't be answering, because by Wednesday they'd receive something far more official than my silence. They'd receive documentation, legal paperwork, proof that I wasn't coming back on their terms. I set an alarm for 8 a.m. Kova? His office was downtown, 20 minutes away in Saturday traffic. I wanted to arrive early, prepared, with a list of questions and 3 years of supporting documents. The last text from Rosamond arrived at 1:15 in the morning. "We have nowhere else to go." That wasn't my problem anymore. The drive downtown took exactly 19 minutes. I'd left the motel at 9:30, allowing extra time for parking and navigation. Tampa on a Saturday morning moved differently than weekdays. Slower, less urgent. People running errands instead of racing to offices. I found a spot on a side street 2 blocks from Kova's building and fed the meter with quarters from my car's cup holder. The office was on the 3rd floor of an old brick building that probably predated me. No elevator. I took the stairs, my footsteps echoing in the empty stairwell. At the top, a frosted glass door read, "Kova and Associates," in simple black letters. I pushed it open at 9:58. The waiting area held 4 chairs, a coffee maker, and a receptionist's desk that sat empty on Saturdays. Before I could decide whether to sit or stand, a door opened and a man emerged. "Mr. Torres?" He was maybe 52, with graying hair and wireframe glasses, wearing slacks and a button-down shirt without the jacket. Saturday casual. "Daniel Kova, come on back." His office was smaller than I'd expected, but meticulously organized. Bookshelves lined with legal texts. A desk clear except for a laptop and a yellow legal pad. He gestured to a chair across from him and sat down, sliding the legal pad into position. "Tell me the situation," he said. "Start wherever makes sense." I'd prepared for this. Facts, not emotions. Timeline, not grievances. My daughter and her husband have been living in my house for 3 years. No written lease, no rent payments, no formal agreement of any kind. 2 days ago, there was an incident that made clear the arrangement needed to end. I removed them as authorized users on my credit cards yesterday morning. Now I need them out of the house legally. Kova wrote in quick, neat handwriting. "They receive mail at this address?" "Yes. They use it as their permanent residence." "Do you live there too?" "I did. I left Friday morning. I'm staying at a motel while this resolves." He looked up. "So you abandoned the property?" "I didn't abandon it. I left temporarily to avoid confrontation while establishing legal boundaries." "Good answer." He made another note. "Any written communication between you about them leaving?" "No. They don't know yet that I want them out permanently. They think I'm visiting friends for a few days." Kova leaned back, tapping his pen against the pad. "All right. Under Florida law, what you have here is a guest-at-will situation. No lease, no rent, no tenant protections. You have the right to terminate their guest status whenever you choose. But," he held up one finger, "you need to do it properly." "What does properly mean?" "Written notice delivered in a way we can prove they received it. For guests, 15 days is standard, more than legally required, but it shows good faith if this ends up in court." "Will it end up in court?" He shrugged. "Most people leave when they get official paperwork. Reality sets in, but we prepare for the worst case, which is formal eviction proceedings. That could take another 4 to 6 weeks if they fight it." "How do I deliver the notice?" "I draft it, we send certified mail, and I'll also arrange a process server to hand-deliver a copy. Belt and suspenders approach. They can't claim they never received it." I pulled out the folder I'd brought, bank statements, credit card records, the spreadsheet I'd created. "I have documentation of financial support I've provided. 78,000 over 3 years. Is that relevant?" Kova glanced at the papers but didn't take them. "Not for the eviction itself. The house is yours, that's all that matters. But keep those records. If they damage anything on their way out, you might need proof of their financial situation for recovery purposes." "They'll damage things," I said, not a prediction, a certainty. "Then document everything. Photos now, photos after they leave, repair estimates. Florida allows landlords, well, property owners, to pursue damages, but one step at a time." He turned to his computer, opened a document. "Let me draft this while you're here. We'll review it together, make sure the language is exactly right." While he typed I watched the street below through his window. Saturday shoppers, couples holding hands, someone walking a dog. Normal life continuing while I sat in a lawyer's office preparing to evict my own daughter. "Question," I said. "Do they have any legal grounds to fight this?" "Not really. You're not a landlord. You're a host. Hosts can uninvite guests. The only issue is if they claim some kind of implied contract, like they've been doing work on the house in lieu of rent. Have they?" "No." "Then you're clear. This is straightforward. Doesn't mean it'll be easy emotionally, but legally it's solid." He printed the document and handed it across. I read it carefully, my accountant's eye catching every detail. "Notice to vacate premises. Their names listed formally. Rosamond Marie Torres, Theodore James Walsh. The address? My address. The deadline. 15 days from date of delivery." The language was cold, procedural, perfect. "This works," I said. "My fee is $450. That covers drafting, certified mailing, process server, and one follow-up consultation if needed. If we have to file actual eviction proceedings, that's additional, but we're hoping it doesn't come to that." I pulled out my checkbook, the one they'd never had access to. $450. Less than Theodore spent on his last electronics purchase using my card. I wrote the check with steady hands. "When will they receive this?" I asked. "Certified mail goes out Monday morning. Process server will attempt delivery Tuesday. By Wednesday at the latest, they'll have it in hand." Wednesday. 4 days from now. The timeline felt both impossibly long and frighteningly fast. "Kova?" "Walk me to the door. shook my hand. One more thing, Mr. Torres. Do they have anywhere else to go? Family? Friends? I thought about Theodore's parents 40 miles north. Thought about Rosamond's few remaining friends from high school, all of whom she'd alienated over the years with her demands and drama. That's not my concern anymore, I said. He nodded, approving. Call me if anything changes. If they threaten you. Damage property. Anything that needs legal attention. Back in my car, I sat for a moment before starting the engine. My phone showed 2 missed calls, both from the house. I didn't check for voicemails. The drive back to the motel took 25 minutes. Traffic heavier now, closer to lunch. I stopped at a drive-thru, ordered a sandwich I ate in the parking lot, while reviewing the copy of the notice Kova had given me. 15 days. That's how long they had to pack their lives and leave my house. That evening, another voicemail arrived. Rosamond again, her voice different now, smaller, scared. Dad, please. We need to talk. I don't understand what's happening. Just tell me what you want. We'll fix it. Whatever it is, we'll fix it. I played it once, then deleted it. No apology. Just promises. Just negotiations. Still thinking this was something they could manage, manipulate, survive with the right combination of words. On Monday, I'd return to Kova's office to sign the final documents. On Tuesday, a stranger would knock on my door, except it wouldn't be my door anymore, not in the way it had been. It would be a property I owned where people I was evicting temporarily resided. The distinction mattered. I opened my laptop and began a new spreadsheet. Eviction timeline. Column 1, dates. Column 2, actions required. Column 3, documentation needed. Column 4, contingency plans. 40 years in accounting had taught me that organization defeats chaos. Systems outlast emotion, and revenge, though I didn't like to call it that, was just another form of correction, an audit of a broken relationship, if you will. The numbers had to balance eventually. 4 days at the motel had been enough. Enough time to meet with Kova, twice to let the certified mail go out, to allow Rosamond and Theodore to marinate in their panic. On Tuesday afternoon, I packed my suitcase, checked out of the Sunset Motor Inn, and drove the 15 miles back to Tampa. My house appeared unchanged from the street. Same beige siding, same overgrown hedges. Theodore kept promising to trim, but never did. I pulled into the driveway at 3 o'clock, turned off the engine, and sat for a moment. The leather document folder rested on the passenger seat, brown and worn from 40 years of carrying contracts and balance sheets. Inside it now, 2 copies of the notice to vacate, crisp with law firm letterhead. I left my suitcase in the trunk. I'd retrieve it later, after. The key turned smoothly in the front door lock. I stepped into the foyer and heard voices from the living room. Television noise, then sudden silence. Footsteps. Theodore appeared first, his face shifting through surprise to something approximating warmth. "Pops!" He moved toward me, arms spreading. "You're back. We were worried sick about you." I walked past him without slowing, heading for the dining room. Behind me, Rosamond's voice. "Daddy, we're so glad you're home. We need to talk." The dining room table still held the Thanksgiving centerpiece, wilted flowers in a crystal vase my wife had bought decades ago. I set the folder down on the polished wood and opened it with the same precision I'd used opening quarterly reports. 2 documents, clean edges, official seals. I slid 1 copy across the table toward where Rosamond now stood, placed the second in front of Theodore as he entered behind her. "You have 15 days to find other housing," I said. Theodore grabbed his copy, eyes scanning. His manufactured smile evaporated. "What the—" He read faster. "You can't do this. This is my home, too. I've put work into this place." I didn't respond to the lie. He'd never fixed a loose floorboard or replaced a light bulb without complaining. Rosamond's paper trembled in her hands. She looked at the header, the formal language, and her face crumpled. The sobs came immediately, loud, gasping, designed for maximum impact. "You're throwing your own daughter onto the street?" She sank into a chair. "What kind of father are you?" "The kind who gave you 3 years of support and got a bucket of garbage in return." Theodore slammed his palm on the table. "We apologized for that. It was a joke that went too far." Nobody apologized. I kept my voice level, factual. And it wasn't a joke. "But we—" Rosamond looked up, mascara already smearing. "We're sorry now. We'll make it right. You have 2 weeks. The notice is legal. The timeline is final. I suggest you start looking for apartments. I turned toward the stairs. Behind me, Theodore's voice rose. You went to a lawyer? You actually hired a lawyer against your own family? I didn't answer. 13 steps to the second floor. I'd climbed them thousands of times, carrying groceries, laundry, the weight of pretending everything was fine. Now I climbed them free of that weight. This is insane, Theodore shouted from below. We have rights. You can't just... Read the document, I said without turning. Everything you need to know is there. Rosamond's voice cracked. Daddy, please, just listen for 1 minute. I reached my bedroom door, entered, closed it behind me. The lock I'd installed 3 months ago turned with a solid click. Through the door, their voices continued. Theodore's rage, Rosamond's theatrical grief. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. The calendar on my screen showed December 10th, circled in red. 15 days from delivery of the notice. The certified mail confirmation would arrive by tomorrow. Process server by Thursday at the latest. My phone buzzed. Text from Theodore. We need to talk about this like adults. I set the phone face down and didn't respond. Below, something heavy hit the floor, Theodore's anger finding an outlet. I made a note on my laptop. Tuesday, 3:27 p.m. Loud crash from downstairs. Assess damage after they leave. The documentation had begun. That evening crawled by. I remained in my room, door locked, listening to the house settle into its new reality. Rosamond and Theodore's voices drifted up through the vents. Urgent whispers, phone calls. Rosamond's tone hitting that particular pitch she used when recruiting sympathy. By Wednesday morning, my phone showed 11 missed calls from numbers I recognized immediately. Rosamond's aunt, Linda. Theodore's brother, James. 2 neighbors. Several family friends I hadn't spoken to in months. The campaign had begun. Linda called again at 9. I answered this time. Otis? Her voice carried careful concern. Rosamond called me. She's absolutely devastated. She says you're evicting her? What happened? Rosamond and Theodore have lived here free for 3 years, I said. On Thanksgiving, they humiliated me in front of 10 guests. I've given them legal notice. 15 days to find other housing. Silence. Then, she didn't mention anything about Thanksgiving. I imagine she didn't. Otis, I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. Families should be able to work through. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a boundary. One I should have set years ago. She hung up shortly after, awkwardness thick in her goodbye. Theodore's brother James called next, voice aggressive from the first word. What kind of man throws his own family onto the street? The kind who's been financially supporting them for 3 years and got handed a bucket of garbage for Thanksgiving dinner. What? Ask Theodore about the bucket. If he's honest, which I doubt, he'll tell you. James didn't call back. The neighbors tried softer approaches. Maybe everyone just needs to cool down. Have you considered counseling? Surely there's room for forgiveness. Each time I gave the same brief explanation. The facts. The timeline. The bucket. Most people didn't know what to say after that. By Thursday morning, I ventured downstairs for coffee. Theodore was already in the kitchen, leaning against the counter as I measured grounds into the filter. 2 scoops. Same routine for 40 years. We need to talk, he said. I pressed the start button on the coffee maker. I'm listening. I talked to a lawyer, his arms crossed, voice hardening. Oral contracts are legally binding in Florida. We had an agreement that we could live here permanently. We'll claim that in court. I turned to face him. Then hire that lawyer and file your suit. My attorney is prepared for that possibility. You don't have... I have 3 years of bank statements showing I funded your entire lifestyle, while you contributed nothing. I'm an accountant, Theodore. I document everything. His confidence fractured. He'd been bluffing, and we both knew it. This is ridiculous, he muttered, but he left the kitchen without another word. That afternoon, a soft knock came at my bedroom door. Rosamond's knock, not Theodore's. Daddy? Her voice was small. Can I come in? I unlocked the door, opened it halfway. Didn't step back to allow entry. She stood in the hallway, eyes red from crying. Real tears this time, or at least more convincing ones. Can we please just talk? Really talk? There's nothing to discuss. The notice stands. But Daddy! She pressed her palms together like prayer, though I'd asked her not to use religious gestures. Mom wouldn't have wanted this. She'd want us to work it out. She'd want you to forgive us. My jaw tightened, the first crack in my calm exterior, but not the kind she hoped for. Don't use her name. But she'd want... Don't. The word came out harder than I intended. Not after you called me a freeloader at the table she bought with her teacher's salary. Not after you treated me like garbage in the house she loved. Rosamond stepped back, genuinely startled. I didn't mean it like that. You meant exactly what you said. Your mother taught you to treat people with respect. You chose not to learn that lesson. Now you're learning a different one. I closed the door, heard her footsteps retreat down the hallway. By evening, the phone calls had stopped. The house fell into tense silence. I sat at my desk, reviewing the timeline. Certified mail delivered Wednesday morning, confirmed by tracking number. Process server attempted delivery. Thursday afternoon, Theodore had refused to answer the door, but the server left it anyway, which counted as legal delivery under Florida law. The 15-day countdown was official. December 10th loomed. Around 8, I heard Theodore and Rosamond arguing in their bedroom, muffled but audible through the shared wall. His voice spiked. "This isn't working. None of your crying is changing anything." Her response was too quiet to hear, but his answer wasn't. "Then we need to find another way." I made another note in my documentation file. Thursday evening, overheard discussion of another way. Monitor closely for property damage or harassment. Later, passing in the hallway, Theodore stopped. His voice dropped low, threatening. "You're going to regret this. Mark my words." I turned, looked directly at him. "The only thing I regret is waiting 3 years to do it." He stood there, fists clenched, but he didn't move. Couldn't. Because despite all his bluster, he knew the law was on my side. He had no cards left to play, except desperation, and desperate people made unpredictable choices. I returned to my room and locked the door again. Outside my window, Tampa hummed with its normal evening rhythm. Cars passing, neighbors walking dogs, life continuing. Inside this house, 3 people waited. 2 of them for a miracle that wouldn't come. 1 of them for December 10th. 13 days. The house felt different the next morning. Not just tense, hostile. I woke to the sound of cabinet doors slamming downstairs, Theodore's anger finding outlets in noise. Rosamond's voice, high and strained, trying to calm him. I lay in bed thinking, they've run out of words. What comes next won't be verbal. Time to prepare. By 6 o'clock, I was at my laptop researching home security cameras. Florida law was clear. Homeowners could install surveillance in common areas with proper notification to occupants. I needed 2 cameras, simple wireless units, motion-activated recording to cloud storage. The drive to Best Buy took 15 minutes. A young employee approached as I entered the security section. "These cameras are pretty popular for home security," he said, gesturing to a mid-range system. "They connect to your Wi-Fi, and you can check the feed from your phone. Easy setup." "Battery or plug-in?" "These are plug-in. Continuous recording to cloud storage. You get 7 days of free storage, or you can pay for extended." 7 days is sufficient. I paid cash, no paper trail, and drove home with the box on the passenger seat. Theodore and Rosamond's car was gone when I arrived. Good. I carried the box upstairs, read the instructions, downloaded the app to my phone. Installation took an hour. Camera 1 went on the top shelf of my living room bookcase, angled down to capture the sofa, entrance, and hallway. Camera 2 fit perfectly on top of the refrigerator, wedged between the appliance and ceiling, viewing the sink, stove, and kitchen table. I plugged both into outlets. 2 small red lights blinked steadily, visible deterrents. They returned around 6 that evening. I heard their car, heard the front door. I descended the stairs, carrying 2 printed notices. They were taking off their coats when I handed each of them a paper. "Video surveillance is now active in common areas," I said. "This is your legal notification." Theodore snatched the paper from my hand, read it, looked up at the bookshelf, spotted the camera. "You've got to be kidding me." Rosamond's eyes welled. "You're spying on us now?" "I'm protecting my property. You're welcome to avoid the common areas if you prefer." I turned and climbed the stairs. Behind me, Theodore's voice. "This is insane." I didn't respond. The lock on my bedroom door turned with its familiar click. The next morning, Saturday, I stayed in my room reviewing financial statements on my laptop. Around 8:45, I switched to the camera feed out of curiosity. Theodore entered the kitchen, looked directly at the camera. The red light was visible. He knew he was being recorded. He paused, then opened the cabinet under the sink. I leaned forward. He took out a wrench, my wrench, from the toolbox in the garage. He crouched, reached under the sink where the faucet connection was. Worked for maybe 90 seconds. Water started dripping. He adjusted something. The drip stopped. He replaced the wrench, closed the cabinet, and left. I watched it twice more, then saved the file. Kitchen sabotage, nav 2947.mp4. Sunday morning, I called a licensed plumber. Professional service, not a friend. Documentation mattered. He arrived within 2 hours. Middle-aged, competent, carrying a toolbox and invoice pad. See this connection here? He aimed his flashlight under the sink. It's been deliberately loosened. You can see the tool marks on the fitting. This wasn't wear and tear. Can you document that in your report? Already am. I've seen this before. People trying to create maintenance issues. You want photos too? Yes. As many as you need for a thorough report. The repair took 40 minutes. The bill came to $340. His written report included the phrase, intentionally compromised connection, and evidence of tool marks, inconsistent with normal deterioration. That evening I composed an email to Theodore. Subject line, reimbursement required. Body text, Theodore, attached you'll find. 1. Video evidence of deliberate damage to kitchen plumbing on Nov 29. 2. Plumber's report confirming intentional sabotage. 3. Invoice for repair, $340. I expect reimbursement within 30 days. Failure to pay will result in this amount being added to any future legal proceedings. Otis Torres. I attached all 3 files. CC'd Daniel Kova. Hovered over send for 1 second. Not hesitation, just finality. Click. 5 minutes later, from downstairs, "What the... that bastard!" Theodore's voice carried through the floor vents. I heard rapid footsteps, a door slamming. Rosamond's higher pitch trying to calm him. His response too muffled to make out, but the rage was unmistakable. I opened a new document on my laptop. Incident log, December 2025. Started typing. The cameras blinked their steady red rhythm. Recording, watching, documenting every moment until December 10th. 9 days left. The next evening I did what I'd done the first of every month for 40 years. Reviewed my financial statements. Old habits from decades at accounting firms don't fade. I wasn't looking for anything specific. But when you've audited numbers as long as I have, anomalies jump out. And there was an anomaly. A big one. October's credit card statement, line item 47. Best Buy, 1,147. I paused, removed my reading glasses, cleaned them, put them back on. Still said $1,847. I didn't shop at Best Buy in October, but Theodore had access to my card then. I kept scrolling. Men's Warehouse, 623, on October 9th. I don't buy suits. Fleming's Steakhouse, 287 on October 15th. I don't eat at expensive restaurants alone. I pulled up September, August, July, June. Each month revealed the same pattern. Electronics stores, clothing retailers, high-end restaurants, none of it household expenses. By midnight, my eyes burned, but I wasn't stopping. At 6 the next morning, I started again. By noon, I had a complete 6-month audit. I opened Excel. Credit to card analysis is Torres, 2025. XLSX, column A, date. Column B, merchant. Column C, amount. Column D, category. Row after row. Best Buy, 10847. PlayStation Store, 306. Nordstrom, 892s. Ruth's, Chris, 234. On and on through 47 entries. Cell C48, I entered the formula. The total appeared, 12 to 27. I stared at it. Not anger, just certainty. Around 1 o'clock, I called Daniel Kova. Daniel, it's Otis Torres. I've discovered something concerning Theodore's use of my credit card before I blocked access. What kind of concern? Unauthorized personal purchases. 6 months of documentation. $12,427. Silence for 2 beats. Then, were these charges for household benefit? No. Gaming console, designer clothes, expensive restaurants. Personal spending. Did you authorize personal use? I authorized household expenses only. groceries, utilities, legitimate family needs. Do you have documentation? Complete spreadsheet with every charge cross-referenced to statements. Send everything. I'll review and prepare a demand letter. I emailed the files before we hung up. 2 hours later, Kova called back. This is actionable. Breach of fiduciary duty at minimum. I'm drafting a formal demand for reimbursement. 30-day deadline. If he doesn't pay, you can file civil suit. Draft it. The demand letter arrived in my inbox at 4 o'clock. I printed 2 copies. One for my records, one for Theodore. I found him in the living room, scrolling his phone on the couch. He looked up when I entered, his expression wary. I handed him the envelope. This is from my attorney. He took it slowly, tore it open, pulled out the letter, official letterhead, bold text, demand for reimbursement of unauthorized charges. His face changed as he read. Confusion, comprehension, fury. $12,000? He stood up, letter crumpled in his fist. For what, exactly? PlayStation console, gaming subscriptions, designer clothes, expensive dinners. The spreadsheet is attached to the letter. Every charge is documented. I needed those for... He stopped. No explanation existed that would work. Rosamond appeared in the doorway. What's happening? Theodore thrust the letter at her. She read, hand covering her mouth. Dad, no. You gave me that card. Theodore's voice climbed. You said I could use it. For groceries, for utilities, not for a $700 suit. The spreadsheet lists every unauthorized charge. This is ridiculous. We're family. Family doesn't steal. Rosamond stepped forward, tears already falling. Dad, we don't have $12,000. You know we don't. How are we supposed to pay this? You have 30 days. You're getting jobs. You're moving out in 8 days. That's 3 paychecks before the deadline if you start immediately. 3 paychecks won't cover this. Then arrange a payment plan through your attorney. Or Theodore can sell the gaming console, the clothes, the electronics he bought with my money. Options exist. Theodore stepped closer, his voice dropping to something meant to be threatening. If you pursue this, you'll never see your daughter again. Never see any grandkids if we have them. You'll die alone. I looked at him directly, held his gaze without blinking. I'd rather die alone with my dignity than live surrounded by people who steal from me. That's not family, that's exploitation. The silence that followed was complete. Theodore had nothing left. No bluster, no threats, no manipulation tactics. Just the letter in his hand and $12,000 he couldn't pay. I turned toward the stairs. Behind me, Rosamond's voice broke. Daddy, please! I kept walking. 13 steps to the 2nd floor. When I reached my bedroom and closed the door, I could hear them arguing below. Her voice desperate. How are we going to pay this? His voice bitter. We're not. I sat at my desk and added the demand letter to my growing file of documentation. Everything organized, labeled, dated. A case built without effort, just by being meticulous and honest. Downstairs, their voices rose and fell. Not my problem anymore. 8 days until December 10th. Then silence. The next morning, the house felt different. Not tense anymore. Resigned. I woke to voices downstairs, low and urgent. Phone calls. Apartment listings. Rental applications. The sound of people accepting defeat. 7 days remained until the eviction deadline, but I suspected they wouldn't wait that long. I stood in my bedroom with my coffee, looking at the wall calendar where December 10th was circled in red. Counted with my finger. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. They'd leave sooner. I could hear it in the way they moved now. Purposeful, expedient. Cornered animals flee when they can. Around 2 that afternoon, I was in the living room reading when Rosamond appeared. Theodore was out. I'd heard his truck leave an hour earlier. She stood in the doorway until I looked up. Dad, can we talk? Really talk? Her voice was different, not theatrical. Exhausted. I marked my page, set down the book. She sat on the edge of the sofa, hands clasped, like someone at a job interview they couldn't afford to lose. I've been thinking about what happened, she said. I was wrong. Theodore influenced me, but that's not an excuse. I should have defended you that night. I should have, I interrupted quietly. Past tense, but you didn't. I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I deeply regret. Rosamond, I leaned forward slightly. What exactly did you call me on Thanksgiving? She looked away. Dad, don't say it. Please, look at me and say it. Her voice came out barely audible. A freeloader. Louder. A freeloader. In front of how many people? 10. Tears now streaming down her face. In whose house? Yours. The word broke on a sob. I leaned back. You remember every detail? So do I. Some things can't be apologized away. Public humiliation from your own daughter. That's a wound that doesn't heal with words. She stood, stumbling toward the stairs, crying. I picked up my book and found my place. My hands were steady. That evening, Theodore burst into the living room. Rosamond must have told him about our conversation. You're destroying our family, he was shouting before he even crossed the threshold. Over one stupid comment? You're willing to throw away your relationship with your daughter forever? I didn't rise from my chair. One comment? 3 years of taking. 3 years of disrespect. That night was just when I finally saw clearly. You're a bitter old man. You're alone and you can't stand seeing us happy. I'm alone because you drove everyone away, and you weren't happy. You were comfortable. At my expense? There's a difference. Fine, we'll leave. And when you're old and sick and need someone, don't come crying to us. I stood then, met his eyes directly. Theodore, you destroyed this family on Thanksgiving night with that bucket. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just stopping you from destroying what's left of me. He had no response to that. Turned and stormed out. The next day, December 4th, I watched from my bedroom window as they loaded boxes into their car. When they returned hours later, their body language had changed. Slumped shoulders, defeated acceptance. They'd found something. That evening I was making dinner when I heard Theodore on the phone in their bedroom, his voice carrying through the thin walls. Yeah, we need a truck for Thursday morning. December 5th. Small load, mostly boxes and a mattress. No, just going across town. Thursday, tomorrow, 5 days ahead of the deadline. I stirred my pasta sauce, plated my dinner, sat alone at the kitchen table. The house was quiet, except for their muffled preparations upstairs. Almost over. I went to bed early that night, but couldn't sleep immediately. Through the walls, I heard tape on cardboard, the scrape of furniture being moved, boxes being sealed, the sounds of departure. Tomorrow, they'd be gone. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt like someone who'd finally stopped bleeding, not celebrating the wound, just relieved it had stopped. I woke before dawn on December 5th to the sound of a truck backing into my driveway. Beep, beep, beep. Moving day. I lay in bed listening to doors opening downstairs, footsteps, Theodore's voice directing. They'd arrived early, wanted this done quickly. So did I. I rose, dressed in jeans and a flannel shirt, made coffee, stood at my bedroom window watching them load. Theodore carried boxes. Rosamond made trips with bags of clothes. Their car packed tight with smaller items. Back and forth, efficient, no lingering. Each box loaded was another piece of my space returned. By 11, the truck was nearly full. I descended the stairs for the first time that morning. Theodore was in the kitchen doorway, sweaty from loading. We looked at each other across maybe 10 feet. Neither spoke for several seconds. We're leaving now, he finally said. Not an apology, a statement of completion. I nodded once. He couldn't help himself. You're going to regret this, old man. When you're alone and sick and need help, remember this day. The only thing I regret is not doing this 3 years ago. His face flashed anger, then resignation. He turned away. Rosamond appeared where he'd stood, looked at me with exhausted eyes, opened her mouth. Nothing came out. What was there left to say? She'd tried apologies, manipulation, tears. All failed. She just looked at me for 3 seconds, then turned and walked toward the door. I didn't call out, didn't stop her. The silence said everything. I watched from the living room window as Theodore started the truck. Rosamond got in her car. 2 vehicles pulling away from my house. Watched until they turned the corner and disappeared. Then silence. Complete silence. No footsteps overhead. No voices through walls. No tension in the air. Just quiet. I walked slowly through my home. Living room, my furniture, my books, my space. Kitchen, clean counters, organized cabinets. Upstairs to their bedroom, stripped bare, empty closet gaping open. I closed that door. It could stay closed for a while. I opened windows throughout the house. December air, cool and fresh, circulation, renewal. That evening, I sat on my front porch in my favorite wicker chair, cup of coffee cooling in my hands. The sky went orange, then pink, then purple. Judy Brennan appeared on the sidewalk, walking her terrier. She veered up my walkway. "Otis, I saw them leave this morning." She paused. "I was there on Thanksgiving. I saw what Theodore did with that bucket. You did the right thing." Something released in my chest. External validation from someone who'd witnessed it. "Thank you, Judy. That means something." She smiled, patted my shoulder, continued her walk. I sat until stars appeared. The next morning I called a locksmith. Professional service, prompt arrival. He changed every lock. Front door, back door, garage, deadbolts. "New tenants moving in?" he asked. "No? Old ones moving out." He nodded, understanding immediately. "Fresh start, then." Exactly that. By noon, I had new keys. The old ones were worthless metal now. I took down the security cameras, saved all footage to an external drive, stored it in my filing cabinet. Documentation, just in case. But I didn't think I'd need it. They were gone. That afternoon, I opened my laptop and started researching. Kitchen remodel ideas, living room paint colors, new furniture for the guest bedroom. Not their room anymore, just a room that needed purpose. My house, my rules, my peace. I thought about kindness then, how I'd been kind for 3 years, how they'd mistaken that kindness for weakness, for permission to take and take and take. But kindness isn't weakness. I understood that now. Allowing exploitation, that's the betrayal. Not of them, of yourself. I'd reclaim my home. I'd reclaim my dignity. I'd reclaim the peace I'd forgotten I was entitled to. And the best part? I got to live well without them. Not out of spite, out of simple, honest relief. That was the real victory, not their departure, my recovery. The house was quiet around me. My coffee steamed on the desk. Outside, December sun filtered through the windows I'd opened. Fresh air, clean space, silence that felt like comfort, not loneliness. I smiled, the first genuine smile in weeks, and clicked on a paint color called New Dawn. Seemed appropriate. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.